As we move into fall, we see sales in August begin to slow because families are focused on getting the kids back to school. In today's video, I'm going to share 10 tips on pricing your home, and we're going to get started right now. Homes sell for market value, and market value is determined by the market. The market is a living organism that is constantly changing. Now, when we look at stats about the market, the stats we see in August were the sales that closed in July and the contracts that were written in June. So when I report numbers, we're looking at the rear view mirror. Tip number 1 has to deal with improvements. You want to be very careful about improvements. Some improvements are maintenance and do not necessarily add value to your home. For example, a roof is a maintenance issue. People expect to buy a home with a roof. You might spend $15,000 on a roof, but that doesn't necessarily mean you can add $15,000 to the value of your home. A roof might make it more saleable, but it may not increase its value. Let's look at something like carpet. Let's say you replace the carpet and you might have spent $8,000 for that improvement. But the minute that carpet is installed, the carpet begins to depreciate. When a buyer walks in your home, the buyer doesn't see $8,000 worth of carpet. The buyer sees used carpet. Also, when you spend $8,000 on that carpet replacement, some of that cost is in labor. It's not all just carpet. Tip number 2 is related, and this has to deal with neighborhood. You want to be careful about over improving the property for the neighborhood. Let's say you buy a home in a $300,000 neighborhood and you spend $200,000 in upgrades and improvements. Just because you have $500,000 in a home, that doesn't mean the home is worth $500,000. The first thing the buyer's buying is location. People who live in $500,000 homes want to live in $500,000 neighborhoods. Be careful not to over-improve the property for the neighborhood. Also, some improvements add zero value. If a buyer doesn't like your improvement, then they're not going to be willing to pay for it. Let's take a moment and talk about offers. Sometimes the first offer is the best offer. Time is not your friend. The longer your home sits on the market, the worse it gets. The best time to get the most amount of money is when it first hits the market. I had a seller one time, and this was back in 2009. He listed his home for $225,000. He got an offer for $205,000. He didn't take it because he didn't want to give it away. Well, he went through 9 agents, and 3 years later, I was his last agent. He listed it with me for $185,000. And 18 months later, he sold it for $135,000. Now, this was a very eclectic property because it was a 7-bedroom home. It had steam heat, and it was sandwiched between 2 conversion apartment buildings on a busy street, and it's near Hanscom Park near 32nd and Center. But this would have been a difficult home to sell in any market, let alone the Great Recession. Tip number 4 is related to offers as well, and that is don't be offended with a lowball offer. You should be grateful, okay? If you've had 10 showings and you only have 1 lowball offer, you should really be offended by the 9 other people who looked at your home and didn't even want to offer you $1. So don't be offended by a lowball offer. At least you have somebody willing enough to put their offer to paper, and it's something you can work with. Just because they make an offer doesn't mean you have to agree to it. It can be negotiated. Tip number 6 has to deal with listen to your agent and to the feedback. Your agent is just the messenger. If you have your home listed with no showings, it's way overpriced. You're being rejected online. Your first showing is online. If you have showings and no offers, then you're overpriced. And here's the thing, agents do not control the market. No amount of marketing can sell an overpriced home. 90% of the marketing is the price. Well, if that's the case, why do I need an agent? Well, because an agent with a buyer is your best friend. When a home is listed with an agent, it's going to net you more money. In fact, you can see this in the past 3 years. Some of the best deals were for sale by owners because you might go to a home that was listed with an agent and they might have 10 offers. Whereas if you went to a for sale by owner, you might be able to make an offer and not have to be competing with other agents, and you might have been able to do a home inspection as well. Here's the other thing you got to be careful about too, and that is some buyer agents, they love an overpriced home because it makes a properly priced home look like a smoking deal. So if you have your home listed and your neighbor is way overpriced, that is your best friend because it's going to make your home look like a great deal. And these are just some hard truths, and that is what you paid for your home does not determine its value. And here's how I can explain this. Let's say you inherited a home. Your cost basis is zero because you didn't pay anything for it. You inherited it. How much is it worth? Well, it's worth market value. You would sell it on the open market, and whatever the market was willing to bear, that's what you'd receive. And if you do have showings and you do get feedback, don't shoot the messenger. Look for trends. Is there something you can adjust or repair? Be open-minded and try not to take it personal. Tip number 7 has to deal with pricing your home on an even breakpoint. People, when they search for homes online, they search in price increments. Price on an even breakpoint. If you have a home that's, let's say, in the $300,000 price range, price it right at $300,000 and don't price it at like $299,900. And why is this? Well, when buyers search online, you'll have one buyer searching from $250 to $300, and you'll have another buyer that's searching from $300 to $350. If you price it right on the nose at $300, then you're going to pick up both sets of buyers. If you price it at $299,900, then you're going to be invisible to the buyers who are looking from $300 to $350. Okay, tip number 8 is you have to sell your home multiple times. 5 people have to be satisfied with the price: the buyer, the buyer's agent, the listing agent, and the seller. But there's another person that's in play, and that's going to be the lender. If the buyer's obtaining financing, the home is subject to an appraisal. If the home does not appraise, the deal is dead because the buyer can't obtain their financing. Agents are excited to show a properly priced home. Buyers are excited about a properly priced home. A properly priced home creates urgency. If a home lingers on the market, buyers will linger around to see if you're done making price adjustments. And if you do adjust the price, go big or go home. Do it once, make it substantial to kind of recapture some of the excitement. Agents are not going to be excited to say, well, hey, remember that home? Hey, they dropped the price $2,000. You want the agent to be excited about the price drop. Hey, remember that home we looked at? Hey, they dropped it $25,000. Now that's going to capture some of that excitement. Tip number 9 has to deal with the repairs. If you get your home under contract, don't buy the house back, okay? Let's say the buyer does a home inspection, and let's say they ask you to make a $700 repair. If you choose not to make that repair and the home goes back on the market, well, guess what? You may not get the same offer. And guess what? Now you got to disclose that defect to all potential buyers. I had a seller one time that killed a deal over $700 repair, and it cost him thousands of dollars. And tip number 10 has to deal with competition. You're in competition. Your goal is to be the best value. What can a buyer get for their money? If you have a split entry home and it's 4 years old, guess what? You're still in competition with new construction. Even if you have a split entry home that's 40 years old, you're in competition with new construction. Omaha is a city where you can get across town in 30 minutes. So that buyer can be in a brand new home in a totally different school district. You're always competing. You want to be the best value. If you want to learn more about buying a home, hey, be sure to check out this next video and you make it a great day.